And on one more inspiring story, one that you may be more inspired than ever before. I know I was. In Davos last week, I sat down with Tracey Chambers, who had an interesting idea about her professional business career and how to take what she'd done in the retail sector and turn it into something that was good. She's taking wasted retail stuff, clothes, shoes, etc., and it's a wonder, and it worked. And through her passion and her program, Tracey Chambers is helping build businesswomen in South Africa. I asked her to first explain how it all got started.
You know, my path to finding that was I worked for one of South Africa's best retailers. It's called Woolworths, but it's not the same as the American Woolworths. It's the equivalent of Marks and Spencer's in South Africa. I was head of finance, and I knew that we had a problem with waste. It's part of the retail model. It's impossible to get supply and demand matched. There's always going to be customer returns. There's always going to be end-of-season merchandise. And the retailers were really struggling with that as a business problem.
And what did they do with it?
They were trying to donate it to charity, but you can imagine it's at the store level, so they would allow a store to select a charity. The store selects an orphanage. And, you know, every quarter they call up the orphanage and say, would you like to come and get some boxes of stuff? And it would go back, and it would be Christmas, and they would go through the boxes.
There'd be a lot of ladies' dresses.
And there'd be ladies'
kids.
Dresses and high heel shoes and bras, and if they were very, very lucky, a baby grow. So really, they really weren't able to match the needs. And so that's my business background. And on the other hand, I'd taken a sabbatical, just really looking to find my purpose in life. And in that moment, I had a woman work for me. Her name is Beauty. She raised my children. She's now 72. She's still in our lives. And you know, every quarter I used to, or twice a year, I used to clean out my own wardrobe. And I don't wear fancy clothes. And I'd give them to say to Beauty, would you like these? And Monday morning we used to celebrate how much money she'd made. And I really threw her, and she was very entrepreneurial, single mother of 5 children. I knew that there was money to be made in the informal sector. I knew there were hundreds of thousands of single mothers. So the statistics in South Africa are frightening. 68% of all mothers with children under the age of 2 are single. And the only safety net they have is about $30 a month per child. And you can't even buy milk and bread for that. The other problem is that many South Africans haven't finished school. Our education system is really failing. Previous generations and this generation, less than 50% of children finish school. And in order to pack shelves at the retailer that I worked at, you needed a grade 12 certificate. So your education and your inability, or the luck that you didn't have in your life to finish school, actually became a life sentence. And the other thing is that South Africans, given our history, weren't particularly entrepreneurial, particularly black South Africans. So they were particularly blue-collar workers. A lot of families had been torn apart through migration. And culturally, we really needed to try and inculcate a culture of, I call it self-employment. You know, almost one step back from entrepreneurship, where you're not necessarily inventing the business, you're executing a business, and really try and get that inculcated, show women that they can create their own wealth, that they don't have to rely on somebody else to create their wealth. And secondly, try and get that message to the next generation. Because I think if you've had a great role model in your life, the chances are that you're going to aspire to being self-employed, and entrepreneurial is much higher. So we really put the two together. My business understanding, my networks within the retail sector, my limited understanding at the time of the need and the demand for single mothers. And my co-founder and I really had a cup of coffee. We call it divine intervention. The idea wasn't really there before we had the cup of coffee. We threw it all in the mix. We also threw in our selfish needs. I wanted to teach and mentor, put that all in the mix, gave it a stir. And really in end of 2009, out popped the idea of the clothing bank. And we've been running ever since, and the doors just keep opening in terms of the work that we do.
So none of this would have happened hadn't you given your excess professional clothes to your child care provider. She sells them on the weekend, comes back on Monday, and you guys giggle about how great it is that she made this money. But that was sort of the genesis of this whole idea, and then you got the concept at this Divine Coffee, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a great overall success story. but since you have been mentoring people individually, tell me about some specific stories, or one or two if you can, about, you don't have to use names if you don't want, but let our viewers have a little bit more texture to what it means.
Yeah. So the typical mother that we work with is single. She might or might not have finished school, but if she has finished school, the quality of her schooling is very low. Her basic maths, she can hardly work out a percentage, that kind of thing. But the main thing is that she comes to us with an I can't mentality. She's had so many failures, she's had so many traumas, she's often been poorly parented. And, you know, in the beginning we thought it was going to be really easy. Fantastic product, because we really do get fantastic product. This isn't second-hand clothing, this is almost brand new clothing. Some business skills, everybody's going to be successful. And in our early years we had a lot of failure. I can think of one particular woman. She was energetic, she was bright, she really wanted this, but she kept coming back to that self-doubt. And I think the psyche, the human psyche, the mindsets that we have, the poverty mindsets, they're very powerful. And even when opportunity presents itself, if you've been stuck in that mindset, you can't reach for the opportunity. It's like your feet are stuck in cement. So we had to learn so much about what it really takes to move people. And sort of 2 years in, we started to become more psychologists than business specialists. And now we really look for women who have high self-motivation, but they also have a thing that we call internal locus of control. And that means that they have a fundamental belief that they're in control of their own life, that life is a series of choices. From every choice I make, I get a consequence. From every one of those, if I learn and seek, understanding, my life, I will make different choices. And if you find people like that, you can work with them. So we've had many, many success stories. I've actually brought you a pack of success stories. But the one that I sort of like to talk about is a mother. She has 7 children. When you ask her, she has a great sense of humor. When you ask her, why did you have 7 children? She said, well, every child was a stepping stone to a roof over my head. So, and those 7 children have different fathers. So as she was out of her home, found a new boyfriend, had his child, thinking that that would mean that she would stay. But of course, it just doesn't. It's almost the opposite. So when Tosh came to us, her children were hungry. She was really relying on her community to help her. She tells us about the headmaster who helped to feed her children, clothe her children. But she's a very, very driven person, and she has really grabbed this opportunity with both hands. She's now not just trading in the product that we source. She has found the spirit of the trader in her. But the most beautiful thing is that she has her 2 eldest children. She has now signed up for college. And she is so proud that she has paid those fees. She's not relying on anyone else, on a government subsidy. She paid them, and the satisfaction that you get from that is incredible. The other second thing with her is that she's gone back to that school. And she said, if any child in the school ever needs clothing, I can give you that because you helped me. She makes sure that every child in her street who has a birthday is celebrated. And I think it's that kind of individual that we really want to cultivate. You might need help at a time, but it's how do you pass it on? How do you pay it forward? It's that really spirit that we like to cultivate.
And it makes me think, you won this prestigious award last year, the Western Cape's Premier Entrepreneur Recognition Awards. And I wonder if you have any advice that might be helpful for others who are inspired by your story, Tracey, but maybe they want to do something in a different light. What's the advice to them, either non-governmental organization or others who want to do some good like you've done?
Yes, I think what we've certainly learned in our work is that charity is probably the worst thing you can do. Nobody wants charity. Nobody feels good when they get charity. We could be giving these clothes away. What we do is we sell them to the women so that they're learning real business principles. But also, it's like a sense of, I didn't get a handout. I actually can do this. And that is, it's catalytic in someone's life. So I would say, to any other nonprofits out there, if you're giving charity, you're actually trapping people in a state of dependency. You're destroying their self-esteem. Secondly, I would say that if you're going to work, with the type of women that we work with, there's no light touch approach. Our average age of a woman is 35. She's had 35 years of trauma. You're not going to undo that in a morning's life skills course, or you're also not going to be able to teach business in a classroom. So figure out a way and understand that this is a long-term journey. You're not always going to find the right person at the right time in their lives. People, not everyone's going to be successful. Sometimes they circle back when they're ready, and that's not a failure. But make sure that you have a holistic program. I look at it since 2010. We came in there with two pieces of the puzzle. One, fabulous product. Second, I was a business woman, so I understood business. That was two pieces of the puzzle. We now probably have 12 pieces of the puzzle. So as we learned, oh my goodness, we didn't understand that, we need to put that in place. And we really, really hold her and nurture her in an environment where she finds herself again. And that's really important. If you're going to work with people, they're not machines, they're human beings, they're complex. And you need to give them the environment and the ecosystem in which they're going to flourish.
You said earlier in the interview that you were trying to find your place in life and wanted to do something else. And certainly this must be one thing. It's incredibly inspirational, highly admirable. More power to you. Thank you for the good work you're doing, not only in South Africa, but the inspiration you're providing around the world. Tracey Chambers, CEO and co-founder of the Clothing Bank in South Africa. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much.